What's going on, guys? Farzine Vasugian here with you for another episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Welcome in. It is a Wednesday night. Appreciate you guys being with me live on Facebook and YouTube, and for everybody listening afterwards, whether on Apple, Spotify, or on the archive version of YouTube and Facebook, wherever it is, however you're listening. Appreciate you guys taking part of your day to listen to the Chiefs Zone podcast. Obviously, no Chiefs game this week, but still a lot to talk about, both involving the Kansas City Chiefs and the rest of the NFL. So a lot of things to get into here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Looking at the news for today, the Chiefs, a pretty busy day for the Chiefs as Matt Nagy has conducted an interview, not conducted an interview, but interviewed with a team. We'll talk about that. Steve Spagnuolo reportedly received interest today. We don't know if the word about it got out today or if there was interest earlier in the week, but Spags' name is out there as a head coaching candidate. What does that mean for him possibly? We'll talk about that, and there might actually be a good chance he moves on, and I'll explain why. Travis Kelce had some things to say on his podcast regarding the alleged Throwgate, whatever we want to call Sunday's game. So Kelce responded to that. I'm sure that's not going to be the last time a Chiefs player is going to have to answer about that, but Kelce was the first one to speak up on it. And I'll give you guys my picks for Sunday's game, or Saturday, Sunday, and Monday's games for the wild card round. All of that here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I see you guys in the chat. Appreciate you guys. I see you, Teresa. See you, Sirhan, Vicky. Appreciate you guys joining me here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I'm sure more people will be joining me as the evening goes on here. Hope you're all having a good night. Let's get into it here. This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. The NFL playoffs are officially here, and if you guys want to catch any of the action, SeatGeek is the place to go to get your tickets. And if you're a new SeatGeek customer, you can use my promo code Farzine, and you will save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and new customers at checkout can enter my promo code Farzine. You'll save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. All right, let's get into the news today involving the Kansas City Chiefs and their assistant coaches. Let's first start with Matt Nagy, as word got out during the season. I want to say about the halfway point of the season, there were already reports out there that the New York Jets were interested in Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think a lot of Chiefs fans were kind of stunned by that news, because of the amount of criticism that has surrounded Nagy ever since he replaced Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator in Kansas City. The New York Jets have followed through with that interest. They announced on their social media, and listen, I don't know how old this whole thing is where you're announcing that you concluded an interview with a candidate. Obviously, the Chiefs have not had to do that in quite some time, which is a good thing, but you're starting. It's been I want to say it's been about 4 or 5 seasons where teams are now announcing on their social media that they interviewed a certain candidate. So this stuff, it's one thing when it comes from an insider, because they'll say a team is interested, but how much interest is there? And when the team themselves, they officially announce it on their social media, kind of confirms some of those rumors and reports out there. Obviously does not mean that they've been officially hired or anything like that. Still a long process, especially for the coaches, the coordinators, that are still out there working to try to get to the Super Bowl. So Matt Nagy, and by the way, I want to back up a little bit here, because I've seen this already in the comments today, and I've seen this all week. Let me just say something here, because a lot of people feel like this is a distraction to teams that are still in the playoffs. I'm telling you right now. Yeah, Teresa, I saw the score was tied at 42 right before I started the podcast. I don't know what's going on with KU this year. I really don't. I'm always cautiously optimistic with KU, but Yeah, that's been KU basketball this year. They've got time to figure it out, but a lot of people are not very confident in that Jayhawks team. But to go back to your previous comment, Teresa, why are they interviewing before our season is over? Listen, it's a weird deal because a team like the Chiefs, their season's not over. Their goal is to play into February, obviously, which is what they've been doing the past couple of years. Meanwhile, a team like the New York Jets, their season is over and they're already in 2025 mode. So, a team like the Jets, they're already trying to get their head coach and also trying to get their coaching staffs together. Now, I will say this. It's nice that the Chiefs are on a bye because that allows the assistants like Nagy to do his interview today. If you play on a Sunday, your off day is Tuesday. If you're playing on a Saturday, your off day is Monday. And if you play on a Monday, which is something fairly new in the NFL playoffs, your off day is a Wednesday. And for the Chiefs, because they're on a bye right now, that allows the players to, or the coaches rather, to be interviewed kind of anytime this week. If they had to play in the wild card round this week, I guarantee you the interviews would have been done on Tuesday, assuming they had a Sunday game. Now, it has changed over the years where the owner and the general manager, they will fly out to where the coaches are, because obviously the coaches cannot leave where they are because they have to prepare for a game. So it's easier to come visit them on their off day. I think now it's a little easier to do this kind of thing because you can conduct these interviews on Zoom or a similar platform, and that'll allow you to actually knock out multiple interviews. And then if you have strong interest in that candidate, you can follow up with a second interview that is usually done after that assistant coach's season comes to an end. So hopefully in Nagy's case, that is after the Chiefs three-peat in February. But for right now, we don't know if that's going to be the case or not. Some teams are willing to wait. I think the Arizona Cardinals and the Indianapolis Colts, they waited for Super Bowl 57 to be over with, and they went ahead and hired Steichen and Gannon to the Cards and Steichen to the Colts. So sometimes these teams are willing to wait, even if it's until early February. Sometimes the caveat to getting a coach to hire him officially, the bad part is you kind of get a little late on forming an entire coaching staff. That can put you behind the eight ball a little bit. I remember the Chiefs were waiting on Todd Haley back in 2009, but the Cardinals played into the Super Bowl, so the Chiefs had to wait quite a while before they could make Todd Haley officially their head coach. And I think that's why you saw certain guys who were retained from the Herm Edwards era. Now, we've seen this before with the Chiefs, with Doug Peterson, with Matt Nagy, with Eric Bieniemy. We're seeing it again right now with Nagy. We're seeing it right now with Spags. Regardless whether they have the postseason bye or not, we have seen assistant coaches for the Chiefs do interviews the week of a game, a playoff game. I know to a lot of fans, that's not ideal. I've seen some people say that's tampering. Here's why it's not, because the team, so for example, the Jets, they had to formally submit a request to interview Nagy. If they don't do that, then they are not allowed to even have the opportunity to talk to him. Now, the teams also have to allow it, and 99.9% of the time, the teams are not going to deny their assistants to go give an interview with these teams because, look, at the end of the day, every assistant coach wants to be a head coach. It's almost like a backup player in the NFL. No one wants to be a backup in the NFL. Everyone wants to start. Everybody wants to be a starter. So if there is an opportunity for them to start, they certainly deserve the opportunity to explore that avenue. So teams are never going to deny their assistants to go do an interview and perhaps go pursue a head coaching gig, because that is the goal for all of these coaches. I guarantee you, every single head coach, especially some of the younger guys on the staff, their goal is to become a head coach in the NFL one day. Now, obviously, a guy like Spags, he has been head coach before. did not do very well. In fact, if we're being honest, he failed at it. And I think he would even admit as much. Just didn't go well with the St. Louis Rams. That was obviously way before they moved to LA. But just looking at Spags' body of work, I mean, he's done a tremendous job as a defensive coordinator here in Kansas City. So, yeah, he did a bad job his first time as a head coach. He certainly deserves a second chance. But again, we've also seen, I remember Doug Peterson, he was doing interviews the same week the Chiefs had games, and I think the Chiefs beat the Houston Texans. That was snapping a 22-year playoff drought, too. So we have seen coaches do this more. The Patriots, I mean, they're used to this kind of, I mean, maybe not the current Patriots staff, but back when it was Belichick and Brady, that dynasty there, I mean, Belichick and Kraft, they were used to receiving formal requests to interview Charlie Weiss, Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniels. Who else? I mean, there were a lot of guys on the defense. I know Joe Judge, I believe, was with the Patriots as a special teams coordinator. So the defensive guys are escaping my mind right now. One of them went to Matt Patricia. I think there's another defensive guy. I want to say Brian Flores. Brian Flores was with the Patriots at one point, wasn't he? I can't remember if he was before or after Patricia, but yeah, he was there, and he was receiving opportunities with the Miami Dolphins. That didn't end well, of course, but you get the idea. So for those who are saying, oh, it's tampering or it's a distraction, I mean, if the teams are allowing it, why as fans are we concerned about that kind of thing? Because if it truly was a distraction, or if it was something that would hurt the team's chances or would hurt their focus for the upcoming game, they wouldn't allow it. And listen, coaches are pretty smart enough to where they can go do the interview, spend the, however many hours they spend with the team, the front office, essentially, the owner and the GM usually. And once that's finished, they can leave that in the rearview mirror and just go back to work and get ready for whatever game they're preparing for. So the Jets, yes, they interviewed Matt Nagy. The odds of him, I would say, becoming a head coach are very slim. I think the running joke with the Jets is the list of people they did not reach out to is a much shorter list than the people they've reached out to, because the Jets have a lot to figure out. Now, Spags, on the other hand, we had not heard anything about Spags until today, and I see a lot of you guys in the comments not happy about this. Spags has received interest today. Rumors out there that the New York Jets and the Las Vegas Raiders, yes, the Las Vegas Raiders, they have reached out to the Chiefs, submitting a request to want to speak with Steve Spagnuolo. Let me just say this about the Raiders right now. I know they've got that history, especially in the Madden era and all that stuff, but that's way in the past. Like, you can talk about history all you want. The Raiders are coming up very close on their 22-year anniversary of not winning a playoff game. And it's not just the fact that they haven't won a playoff game in 22 years. They've only finished above 500 twice. And their 22 years of embarrassment is at an all-time high. I mean, this is one of the worst run franchises in all of sports right now. Who was the last coach, not named John Gruden, to last more than 3 seasons? Gruden was about 3.5, and his was not, a departure because he was bad, and he was actually moving the Raiders in the right direction, but things happened off the field, and the Raiders felt like he needed to resign, and that's what he did. But there's been a lot of turnover with head coaches in, I was about to say in Vegas, but also in Oakland too, because that drought has been going on started while they were in Oakland. But here's the thing. Think about since they moved to Vegas, in the Las Vegas era for the Raiders franchise, they started off with John Gruden. After John Gruden, you had Rich Bisaccia as your interim head coach. And for whatever reason, they did not go forward with Bisaccia. I thought that was a big mistake. And I kind of think it's a surprise that Bisaccia is not getting any head coaching offers from any other team, but not here nor there. So they go with Josh McDaniels. And listen, I've said it many times. I think everyone deserves a second chance. Josh McDaniels got his. Technically, it was his third chance. And he failed miserably at that. So then they moved to Antonio Pierce. He was the interim coach in 2023. He became the head coach in 2024, all because he beat Patrick Mahomes. And he got a big endorsement from Max Crosby. That didn't age very well. Which, by the way, the breaking news this week that Antonio Pierce has been fired. Patrick Mahomes liked the post about it on ESPN's Instagram page. That's hilarious because this was the same clown who goes on Crosby's podcast and says, yeah, we have the recipe to beat Patrick Mahomes. Well, you lost to him twice this year. And I don't want to hear, oh, it was by 2 points. It was a lucky fumble or whatever. You lost. When you say you have the recipe to beat someone and you don't even beat them once when you have an opportunity to play them twice, it's not a good look for you. I mean, by the way, for people who were commenting at the time when I brought this up and they're like, dude, it's the Raiders. Yeah, you're right. It is the Raiders. They should probably not do any talking whatsoever. And have you not noticed with the Chiefs, whenever someone out there has to say something, there was a player on the Dolphins who was praying for the Chiefs' downfall after losing to them in the playoffs. How'd that work out? The Burrowhead thing. Oh, yeah. Let's have that discussion. How has that worked out for the Bengals? Not good. I haven't even won a playoff game since then. And then the Raiders, the Kermit the Frog calling Mahomes a bitch, and the comment that they have the recipe to beat Mahomes didn't even age well. I mean, that's nice. You won on Christmas last year, but that kind of screwed you in the draft because you did not get any of the quarterbacks that the other teams wanted. 6 quarterbacks went before the Raiders could even be on the clock. Hey, listen, Brock Bowers is great, but doesn't mean much if he doesn't have anyone throwing to it. But neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to make here is ever since the Raiders have moved to Vegas, unless they bring back Gruden, which I doubt, by the time the 2025 season starts, the Raiders will have had 5 different head coaches, including interim coaches, in the Vegas era of the Raiders franchise. That's embarrassing, man. 5 different head coaches in the span of 6 seasons, and I'm including interim head coaches because those guys do take on the head coaching responsibilities, even as an interim. I mean, the amount of turnover that's there. My point is, I don't think Spags is going to Vegas. Look, Spags is in his 60s. He's got one more shot at being a head coach, and if there was an opportunity for him to pursue a head coaching opportunity, this is the year to do it. Especially if the Chiefs three-peat. But why would anyone want to go to Vegas of all places when the turnover is ridiculously high and they're constantly bringing in a coach and then firing them? I mean, let's just look at the Raiders over the years, shall we? It's not a good run for the Raiders when it comes to who they've had. They hired Pierce after he coached some games in 2023 as an interim, and they let him go after 1 year. And I don't agree with letting Pierce go. I get it was a really bad year, but it's not all on him. I mean, the front office has to provide him the tools to succeed. And when your quarterbacks are Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and Desmond freaking Ritter, as if teams did not learn from that before, you're not going to win a lot of football games. You're not. Before that, it was McDaniels. They fired him midway through 2023. McDaniels was the coach all of 2022. Before that, it was Bisaccia as the interim, and right before him was Gruden before Gruden resigned. And then Gruden was there for 3 full seasons. So Gruden, one of the very, 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 very few people who has coached the Raiders for more than 3 seasons in... that's funny. The last time somebody coached for the Raiders for more than 3 years was also John Gruden, the same exact guy. Boy, what a shocker that is. That's a surprise. I actually did not realize that until now. That's actually really funny. I didn't know that. Jack Del Rio coached for 3 years. They let him go. And then they brought back Gruden in 2018. Tony Sperano, Dennis Allen, Hugh Jackson. Remember Hugh Jackson, Tom Cable, Lane Kiffin, Art Shell, North Turner, and then they had Bill Callahan for a couple of years. Yeah, they have not had a coach for more than 4 years for a very long time. I mean, 2 decades and ongoing. That's how bad it's been for the Raiders. So my question is, why would Spags go there? And I saw people in the comments say money. Guys, talk to me about Tyreek Hill and how that money's working out for him. Does money buy happiness? I don't know, man. Tyreek Hill hit the bank, and I'm not talking about a Chiefsaholic style of hitting the bank. I'm talking about being the highest paid player at his position. And they even upped the contract about a year or two later. And Tyreek Hill, maybe it was the heat of the moment, but still, I mean, that guy was dejected after the game. He even said, I'm out. And all year long, he keeps posting all these pictures with himself in Kansas City. He doesn't seem happy there. And I know they supposedly cleared the air with him. Okay, that's what they said about Devontae Adams. They were trying really hard to shut down the Devontae Adams rumors, but we all saw how that went. So I just don't think at the end of the day, Spags has any interest in going to a team that just has this carousel of coaches for 2 decades and ongoing. Now, the Jets are also a disaster. I mean, for crying out loud, they decided to turn down a trade because of a player's Madden rating from the owner. Like that I mean, it doesn't get worse than that. But it might be worth it for Spags, because how old is Spags, by the way? He's 65 years old. I think of Dick Vermeil. Dick Vermeil was 69 when he retired. And listen, I mean, that doesn't mean everything at the end of the day. I'm just using Vermeil as an example because the last time the Chiefs had a head coach who retired was Dick Vermeil, and he was 69 years old at the time. So I'm just using him as a reference there. But he's 65. I believe Andy Reid is 66 years old. Yeah, Andy Reid's 66. Because I'm seeing some comments here that Spags should replace Andy Reid. This is what a lot of people said about Eric Bieniemy, but Reid has no plans of going away anytime soon. I think people are always surprised the longer Reid continues to coach, because people keep mentioning, his health, and they dance around, and obvious with Andy Reid with his weight. But it's funny, they don't want to use that word weight or mention obesity. It's like, okay, you want to mention his health, but you don't want to say specifically why. I always find that funny, specifically with Mike Florio, who thought he knew everything about Andy Reid and his retirement plans. That didn't age well at all, but that's Mike Florio for you at the end of the day. Listen, I don't know if Andy Reid's retiring anytime soon. I just don't. I thought I knew, and I think a lot of other people thought they knew as well. I don't think you can rely on just waiting Andy Reid, because Spags is just 1 year younger than Andy Reid. So if he really wants to go and be a head coach somewhere else, I think the Jets might be the spot for him. And I know the Jets are a disaster, but here's what makes that move very appealing to him. He's from Jersey. So that is absolutely a big sell already. Now, Spags is not dumb. He knows that this is a team that has a lot of work to do. Anyone that fires their head coach, you're walking into a place where you have a lot of work to do. 100%. So Spags knows what he'd be walking into. So if the money was good, yeah, Spags could go there for 2 or 3 years, make a lot of money. And if it doesn't work out well, he gets fired, and he probably decides to stay there for the rest of his life. What is Spags' how much money is Spags making? I know assistant coaches' contracts are not usually public, but if you look enough, Front Office Sports has the highest paid NFL defensive coordinators. Let's see if Spags is on here. Spags is making estimated $3.5 million. He's the third highest paid defensive coordinator, according to Front Office Sports. And this list was compiled by using reports and estimated data from NBC, Pro Football Network, and ESPN UK. Because I guess ESPN UK knows more than ESPN America, evidently. Vic Fangio makes the most of any defensive coordinator, according to this report, of $4.5 million. Mike Zimmer at $4 million. Spags at $3.5 million. So yeah, I mean, what could he make as a head coach? Maybe $5-6 million. And again, if it doesn't work out for him, he'll make $12 to $18 million in 2 to 3 years. And if he gets fired, shit, you made some good money, and you could probably just go ahead and call it a career right there. May not end on a good note, but I don't think he cares, man. He's about to be one of the more decorated coordinators, offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator in NFL history, regardless of what happens at the end of the season for the Chiefs. Because the job Spags has done, especially these last 2 seasons, one of the best by a defensive coordinator in NFL history. So John says, while you're at it, screw taking Hill back. You wanted more money. You made your bed. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think he's coming back. First of all, they're not going to just cut him. It's going to be by a trade. And if the Dolphins are going to trade Tyreek Hill back to the Chiefs, they're going to demand Trent McDuffie, the draft pick that led to the Chiefs getting trading away Tyreek Hill and getting McDuffie. And the Chiefs are not going to give up McDuffie. You would have to give up something insane, which is not realistic. Like realistically, right now, if a team really wanted Trent McDuffie, what would you be willing to take for McDuffie right now? I don't know if the Chiefs would even entertain that idea or that thought. So I don't think that's on the table for the Chiefs. Fred's asking, if the Chiefs three-peat, do you see Andy retiring? See, this is what a lot of people thought. People thought Andy would retire after Super Bowl 57, and they thought again about after Super Bowl 58. People thought the same about Travis Kelce because, he's getting old up there in age, and he's also seeing a decline in his numbers. But he keeps saying he has no plans to retire. So I think your guess is as good as mine. He just signed a 5-year deal, and he's coaching the best team he's ever had. Now, I don't think Andy Reid's going to break the all-time record for wins for a head coach. I don't think he has enough time to get there. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, I think of the number 69 with Dick Vermeil because that's when he retired at that age. So I just think that, he's 66 now. He might finish out the 5 years in his contract, maybe ends it 1 or 2 years before. If you three-peat, you do something that's never been done before, sure, that might make sense to ride off into the sunset, except he signed that 5-year deal last offseason. So I say no. Bring in Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator. I don't know why he would go for a lateral move, though, Robert. I think you'd be better off trying to reunite with either Eric Bieniemy or Doug Peterson or Mike Kafka if he doesn't return to the Giants. Is he still with the Giants? Or did he get let go? I must have missed the news. Okay. Because he's interviewing with other teams. Okay, I mean, why is Mike Kafka getting head coaching? Listen, as an offensive coordinator, I'm not gonna judge Kafka for the Giants' downfall. I mean, that I don't know if I would call it downfall. Max Crosby should jump ship, and he's going to cost a lot of money, but I don't think he's going back. He gave the Raiders a big opportunity, and they went with his guy, AP. They don't work out, though. They don't work out. Did Gruden really win his lawsuit against Goodell? I don't recall that. I mean, listen, I don't know if he should have been. He wasn't fired. He resigned. By the way, for people who are like, oh, the Raiders can go and get Gruden back, I don't think Gruden wants to go back there because They made him resign. And as a result of resigning and not getting fired, Gruden forfeits the remainder of his contract with the Raiders. So the Raiders didn't have to pay him what was left of his contract. And again, it's the whole, forced to resign. So you can call it fired, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know where Josh McDaniels is. I might go follow Bill Belichick in at UNC. By the way, there are rumors, and I don't think it happens, but there are rumors about Tom Brady trying to convince him to leave UNC and come back to the NFL, and specifically with the Raiders. I mean, look, I don't know why Belichick, who's like in his 70s, wants to now deal with 18-year-old kids. I suppose dealing with 18-year-old kids is a better gig than the Las Vegas Raiders job. I don't think Belichick wants to go there at his age. I mean, that's going to take even more years off of you. Anywhere you go is a minimum 4-year commitment. I would use 3 years. I think 3 is a more appropriate number. I think in college you should give 4 years just because style is different there. But Timothy, you're right. One thing that Chris Jones has mentioned in past interviews last year, he mentioned that part of the reason why the Chiefs are playing so well is because Spags' wife moved to Kansas City last year. So they had a long distance marriage during football season. And I don't think a lot of people realize this. There are a lot of players and coaches, assistant coaches, that kind of go through this kind of thing. I know when Charlie Weiss was the head coach of the Kansas Jayhawks, his wife and daughter, and I'm not going to go through the whole story. It is not anything personal or private I'm sharing. Charlie Weiss has opened up about this type of thing, but his daughter has special needs, and the school that she was going to, the school system in Florida, was helping her and really benefiting her far more than any other place they went to, because he was offensive coordinator for the Gators. So when he took the Kansas job, his wife and his daughter stayed in Florida while he and his son went to go be part of KU's coaching staff. So, it's a fairly common thing for these guys to have their significant other live in a whole nother town. So Spags' wife, yes, did move before the 2023 season, and Spags was much happier, according to Chris Jones, and that's what led to the team's success. So I don't know. Would it be worth it for them to move again, but move back to New York or New Jersey specifically? Maybe that would make a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree with you, Saron. I don't even know the logic. Like, how do you go from Rich Bisaccia, who kind of saved the season? Even Raiders fans gave up on the season, but Bisaccia found a way to kind of turn things around. At the very least, they made the playoffs. They had a very close game against the Bengals that year. And you don't keep Bisaccia, you go with Josh McDaniels. And again, I think everyone deserves a second chance. But how do you let Bisaccia go? Unless there's something we don't know about that situation. Yeah, I think Carson Palmer had a much better run with the Cardinals than he did the Raiders. I think he was really glad to get the hell out of there. I'm just scrolling through some of your comments here. Yeah, commitment to just win, baby. That's another one, Anthony. And listen, this is the thing. The Patriots, they went through a lot of assistant coaches, and even though their first good offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator during their dynasty, Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel, who we have familiarity with here in KC. Even though they left, they still had other assistants, other offensive and defensive coordinators who stepped up and continued to help the team win. I mean, ultimately, yeah, it was Tom Brady and Belichick. Those are always the two guys who get the most amount of credit. But I think you still got to give credit to the assistants because they're part of the team as well. I think if you're interviewing for the Jets, the whoever is interviewing for the Jets job, they should be asking questions. They're like, how did you guys just have such a circus show of a season this year? How did that happen? Yeah, I mean, listen, Robert Saleh wasn't doing great, but he was not the problem. And we saw it as the season went on. I mean, what did they finish with? 4 wins? So they were 2-3 with Saleh, and they only won 2 games the rest of the year. Yeah, he was not the issue. And listen, I don't think Rodgers is solely responsible either. And he wasn't awful, but he certainly was not what he used to be. Like, let's make that clear. Blake says, are we sure Spags wants to go work for a dysfunctional idiot owner in Woody Johnson? I don't disagree with those descriptions, by the way. Not sure Spags would deal with a bozo like that. Again, Blake, I don't disagree, but if the money is there and that's his hometown, like, that would make it worth it for him, maybe. Maybe. And also, yeah, it does surprise me that Rex Ryan, of all people, is being considered for the Jets head coaching job. That's I still have not been able to wrap my head around that. But yeah, I mean, listen, guys, when you're winning a lot at the end of the day, this is what happens. You have the realistic possibility of losing your assistant coaches. And that's, not a terrible thing. That's a great thing. That's a compliment. I mean, look, the Raiders are literally asking their division rival if they can interview Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, that alone is a massive compliment. Not that we ever needed confirmation from the Raiders organization that the Chiefs are doing such a great job right now with their dynasty and everything, but it does say a lot, doesn't it? That from the Raiders' perspective, they're like, okay, we want to be, that saying, they hated us because they ain't us. Well, you say you have the recipe for Mahomes, and now you're reaching out to an assistant on the team Mahomes is on, and you're trying to get his assistant or defensive coach, rather. When you resort to interviewing Rex Ryan for your head coaching job, you are definitely a clown show. That's the Jets organization. Yeah. Again, like, I would not think Spags would want to go there, but because that's, home for him, that might be the only thing that makes it worth it for him. That's the only thing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on here and talk about the upcoming games for Wild Card Weekend here. I'll start with the LA Chargers at the Houston Texans. This is the first game to kick off Wild Card Weekend. The spread for this one is at 2.5 right now. Listen, the Chargers have a really good defense. I think they're number 1 in points allowed per game. I know their offense may not be the most consistent, but they will find a way to pull through at times. The Houston Texans, I think a lot of people felt like the Texans were going to be the biggest threat to Kansas City in the offseason, especially when they got Stephon Diggs. Unfortunately, he got hurt. They also lost Tank Dell. 2 devastating injuries on the offensive side, specifically at the wide receiver position. And that certainly played a role in CJ Stroud's season, not having the type of year he was having last year. So definitely a different second season that people in Houston may not have saw coming. People thought he was going to have a much better season than this. Houston's defense is really good, though. 2 really good edge rushers. Danielle Hunter, one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, probably does not get talked about as much as TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson. Doesn't get talked about Max Crosby as much as those guys. But he should. He is one of the better edge rushers, and he's sharing the field with another good edge rusher. That Texans defense is just pretty damn good, but they are kind of a depleted football team coming into the playoffs here. So I got to go with the Chargers. First playoff game, I think the road team is going to win. And then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers visiting the Baltimore Ravens, another AFC matchup on Saturday to conclude the Saturday set of wildcard games. The Ravens are 9.5-point betting favorites, and I think that is one where you can easily pick the Ravens to cover the spread. The Steelers just do not look like themselves. They're on a 4-game losing streak coming into the playoffs. The offense, there are all kinds of question marks with the offense right now. Very similar to the Houston Texans, but I think Pittsburgh's offense has more concerns than Houston's offense. Two great defenses, though. I've told you guys all year long, I like the Steelers' defense. I really do. That Steelers' defense is one of the best right now in the NFL. And yeah, pick along with me. Let me know who you guys are picking. And if you want to even talk about covering the spread or what you would do in that situation, let me know as well. I'm picking, by the way, LA to win that one. So obviously that covers their spread. As far, you would have to go with the money line. I mean, come on. As far as Baltimore Pittsburgh goes, the line for that one is 9.5. I'm picking Baltimore to win and to cover the spread. I just think that at the end of the day, that Steelers football team, they're just coming in with so many question marks right now. And look, I'll give Mike Tomlin credit because even on some of these down years for the Steelers, they're still finding a way to finish above 500. The last 10 years, the only two teams that have consistently every single year finished above 500, Kansas City and Pittsburgh. The only two teams. I know Kansas City has had far more success than Pittsburgh the last 10 years, but Pittsburgh's still finding a way to win and get into these playoff games. Not the most ideal ways of doing it, but if they can figure out some stuff with their offense, I think they can be a good football team. Yeah, Zay Flowers, he suffered that big injury, Dalton. You're right. So we'll have to see what happens there. And then the next game, the 12 o'clock game on Sunday, is another AFC matchup. I don't think we've ever seen this before, where the first three playoff games are all from the same conference. Usually they try to mix these, but now that you play 6 games in 3 days, I guess it's just kind of whatever. Denver at Buffalo. I think the point spread has been 8.5 all week. That's what it's at right now. I'm surprised. The line has not moved at all. I'm telling you right now, Buffalo's winning this game. And if I'm wrong, I'll let you guys know about it right away on the podcast and on social media. But this is not going to be a blowout. This is not going to be a runaway game for Buffalo. Now, could Buffalo cover the spread? Perhaps. If it's one of those situations where it's a one possession game and Buffalo has the ball with about 5 minutes left and they find a way to eat up the clock and get a score in, yeah, sure, then they can win by more than 8 points there. But I don't think that happens. This is going to be a very close game. I'm seeing a lot of people pick Denver for the upset. That is one of the more popular upset picks for this week. And the money line's not a bad one. Plus 340. Yeah, that's a really good one here. I think, honestly, the odds makers are disrespecting the Broncos. I really do. That Broncos defensive front is fucking scary. That is a defensive unit right there that can dominate any offense. And the Chiefs certainly had their issues with them. And I'm obviously not talking about this past week's game. I'm talking about the game where the Chiefs blocked the field goal. Certainly had some struggles in that one there. I think what this comes down to, because I think Josh Allen's going to have a hard time. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game either. And maybe I'm wrong about that one, but I don't think this is going to be. I don't think this is going to be a lot of defense here. What it comes down to is experience versus inexperience. Bo Nix is having a good season. Marvin Mims, he's certainly playing much better lately. But these are guys. This Broncos team, I mean, they have not been in the playoffs since Peyton Manning was a quarterback. And that was when they won Super Bowl 50. So it's been a while for the Broncos. They got a lot of new faces here, a lot of young guys on that team. I think that's going to be the difference maker, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens here. I do think it's going to be very, very close. I'm not ruling out the possibility that Denver wins. It's on the table. I'm picking Buffalo to win, but I don't agree with that point spread. I do not agree with that point spread one bit. So I think a lot of people need to pay attention to Denver here because that defense, I think they can make it a very close game, closer than a lot of people might anticipate. All right, the next game, this is the first NFC game, Packers and Eagles. The Eagles are 4.5 betting favorites here. Look, I'm not one to pick a team to win based on one player. But if there is one player, and this guy is my MVP, in my opinion, he's not going to win it. I think with the odds for Josh Allen going up, I think it's pretty clear Allen's the MVP. Some disagree, though. A lot of people say it's Lamar. I think it's Saquon Barkley. The fact that he had 2,000 yards, this is, yeah, I'll get to that in a moment, Teresa. Saquon Barkley can do a lot here. And the Packers, they've had a good season. They're just in a very, very tough division. I mean, the Chiefs are in a very good division with 3 teams making the playoffs here, but it doesn't compare to the NFC North, where you literally had the Lions and the Vikings from the same division, the NFC North, fighting for the number 1 seed in game 272, the final game of the year. That's not something you ever see. So 2 14-win teams from the same division. And I think the Packers have kind of had to deal with that. Whereas the Eagles, even with the Nick Sirianni criticism, though the criticism has kind of faded away. And I truly do believe Barkley has really helped the Eagles move forward from that. Jalen Hurts, if he plays, what's he going to look like? I still think Saquon Barkley is going to do a lot in this game and lift the Eagles to a win. So I'm picking the Eagles, and I do think they cover that spread there. The Commanders at the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay kind of had a weird middle of the season there where they didn't have their receivers. There were injuries going on, and now they got their players back, kind of similar to the Rams with what they went through. And the Buccaneers are playing some good football right now. I know it took all 17 weeks to clinch the division, but they got it at the end of the day. They got a home game, and that's all you can ask for. They may not have as many wins as the Commanders, but this is a football team that has a home game right now. So I like what the Buccaneers have done with their football team. The Commanders, on the other hand, I mean, this is a team that's being led by who is expected to win the Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year award. And Jaden Daniels, he has done a really good job for a guy who's a rookie, constantly leading his team down the field to score and to win. He's done a really good job in that category. But again, could that inexperience come into play here? I do think this will be a close game. I've got to go with Tampa Bay at the end of the day, though. I think Tampa Bay is going to come away with this one. And Washington may not be the ending they want, but I think Washington's going to be a team that's going to stick around for a long, long time. I really do. Then you have the Monday night game. And there's a little bit of concern as to whether this game will happen or if they'll relocate because of the wildfires going on right now in the LA area. So the word is from the NFL that this game is scheduled to take place in LA at SoFi Stadium. But if the wildfires prevent that from happening, they will move the game to Glendale, Arizona, and they'll play at State Farm Stadium where that is where the Arizona Cardinals play. So with that said, I really do like the LA Rams. I think the LA Rams have had a very good season, especially when they got everyone back and everyone's healthy. We saw what they were capable of last year, even without Cooper Kupp for some games. I know Kupp's just been dealing with a lot of injuries, but man, when he is available, that dude looks like he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. Puka Nacua, maybe the best young receiver in the NFL right now. Maybe Rice would be up there with him if he stayed healthy this season, but wasn't the case. So Puka Nacua, broke the record last year for receiving yards as a rookie, and just the type of year that he's having, especially coming back from injury, that's really gone a long way for Matthew Stafford and the rest of that Rams offense. Even a guy like Demarcus Robinson, who a lot of Chiefs fans were wondering, could we get him back and bring him back to KC? Well, the Rams were not willing to give him up. He was actually the guy that Stafford was going to while Kupp and Nacua were injured. So this is a Rams team that has a lot of depth at that wide receiver position. Minnesota, their defense is just top notch. They tied with the Steelers for the most takeaways this season. My biggest concern, I picked the Vikings to beat the Lions. Unfortunately for the Vikings, Sam Darnold maybe had the worst game of the season. Overthrowing, underthrowing, his accuracy was just off in that Sunday night game. Had he been a little better with that, man, Minnesota might have won that football game. But they just kept missing on opportunities, and I think the Vikings defense got gassed out, and that allowed the Lions to just go ahead and score and blow this game out and walk away with an easy win, an easy fourth quarter for the Lions here. I just wonder which Sam Darnold's going to show up here, because the rumor is the Vikings want to bring him back and move on from J.J. McCarthy. And listen, that's a decision for them, and that's a topic we can discuss in the offseason. But my point is this. If Sam Darnold plays like he did on Sunday night, I don't know, man. I think you say, hey, thanks for what you did this year, but we are actually going to move on with JJ. I think Sam Darnold's fighting for a lot this week. And listen, even if he does play bad, I still think that there are teams out there that'll be willing to bring him in based on what he did this year for the Vikings. But the thing about the Vikings is they do have good depth on that football team. It's not just Justin Jefferson when you look at the Minnesota Vikings and what they have on the offense. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, I mean, one of the best receivers in the NFL, but Jordan Addison, I don't think he gets the credit he truly deserves, or their first-round pick from last year. Jalen Naylor, again, another underrated guy that doesn't get talked about much. TJ Hawkinson, a solid tight end for them. It's not just Justin Jefferson. He gets a lot of the national praise for that offense, but there's a really good supporting cast there. Boy, a lot of you guys not very confident in Sam Darnold. But yeah, Augie, I agree with you. Like this is Sam Darnold's Super Bowl here. He's got to play well. He's got to play well. Because if he doesn't, you're looking at a one-year contract next year. But you find a way to bounce back in this game, I think you got a future in Minnesota. I do. I really, really do. Unless you look like complete shit the next game. I've gone back and forth in this one. I really, really have. I know I gave my bracket already, but even then I'm still looking at this game like what's going to happen. I do think this is going to be the game of the week. The line is at 1.5. That is the closest of all the games. And I think Denver Buffalo can be closer, but that 1.5 spread there, that line, that's a tough one to go with. What's going to happen? Which way are you going to lean on that one? Or do you just go with the money line for a safer bet? I'm going to go with the Vikings. That's who I picked earlier in the week, and I'm going to pick them again. I have kind of underestimated the Vikings because, Sam Darnold, that's not the thrilling name at the quarterback position, but they've won a lot of games with him. So I'm going to have to go with Minnesota for Monday night's game. And hopefully they'll be able to play that in LA. So my picks are the Chargers, the Ravens, the Bills, the Eagles, the Commanders. Did I even get picked between the two, Buccaneers and Commanders? I don't think I did when I was talking to you guys, but I did pick the Commanders on my bracket. And the Vikings. Those are my 6 teams. The Commanders will visit the Lions, and the Chargers will visit the Chiefs. That is what I think the divisional round will look like. Real quickly on Travis Kelce. So obviously kind of a busy day for Travis Kelce as far as headlines go. He did win the Walter Payton Man of the Year online nationwide challenge, where he won the Walter Payton Online Man of the Year Challenge. I don't know the exact name for it, but his charity, 87 and running, received $35,000. Yeah, the Swifties help, but he's actually won this exact same challenge before he dated Taylor Swift. In fact, I think, did I say Bucks? Okay, I don't know why I said that, because I definitely picked the Commanders. See, that's another one that I'm kind of torn on, I guess. But yeah, my official pick is Commanders. So if I said that, I take that back. But Kelce did win this war. In fact, there was the span of 3 consecutive seasons where the Chiefs won the online challenge for the Walter Payton Man of the Year competition. Travis Kelce won it. Tyrann Mathieu also won it. I can't remember who was the other Chief that won. I don't think it was Patrick Mahomes, unless I have that wrong. I can look that up real quickly. The Nationwide Challenge, that is what it's called. Nationwide Challenge. Maybe it's mentioned on the Chiefs website. Let me take a quick look at it. Yeah, Kelce also won the challenge in 2020. The Chiefs website mentions that. I do remember because Tyrann Mathieu, in addition to Kelce, quarterback Patrick Mahomes in 2022, safety Tyrann Mathieu in 2021, and safety Eric Berry in 2015 also won the charity challenge. Oh, charity challenge. That's the proper name for it. Okay. So, yeah, I knew the Chiefs won it 3 years in a row before. 2020 with Kelce. So way before he dated Taylor Swift. 2021 with Matthew and 2022 with Patrick Mahomes. So there is that there. Shields has won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, but he didn't win the online challenge. I don't know how long they've been doing the charity challenge. I don't think that's been around the same length. No, yeah, correct, Teresa. That is not the award that gets recognized at the NFL honors. This is separate. Now, Kelce could still win the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. That's possible. But this is not something that gets recognized. Like, he's not going to get awarded for that at the NFL honors, if that's what you're asking. But Travis Kelce, his podcast came out today. Now, they usually record this on a Tuesday or a Monday. Obviously, they didn't do one last week because of the holidays. They pre-recorded an interview with Caitlin Clark, which was a pretty fun listen, by the way. But Travis Kelce was talking today with his brother, as they always do, recapping Chiefs games and Eagles games. And more in depth with Chiefs games because Jason doesn't play anymore. He's a fan from afar now with the Eagles. But Jason Kelce brought it up that the Chiefs supposedly threw the game, and immediately Travis Kelce stepped in and was like, I ain't afraid of nobody. I feel like he was maybe being a little bit more explanatory than he needed to. But he kept saying like how he wanted the Bengals to go in and all that stuff. That he doesn't even care. He'll go through anyway. Listen, I've said this before. If you're the Chiefs, you don't care who you have to play. If the goal is realistically to win another Super Bowl and three-peat, then you have to be ready to play anyone and everyone. And listen, we all know already that the Chiefs are going to get every team's best shot. I mean, listen, they're already in a very tough playoff bracket with the Broncos, who are the 7th seed. I mean, the Broncos are not a pushover team. I would not write off the possibility that the Broncos could make some noise in the playoffs, especially if that defense would just kind of depend on how Bo Nix does. But I mean, there are a lot of great teams in the AFC. So the idea that the Chiefs are afraid is still comical to me. By the way, I saw a funny joke someone put on Twitter. They said that the Bengals are going to be resting all of their players this week. I got a nice little kick out of that one. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I like that one. I just love how worked up Bengals fans are. It's like, this is a fan base that's always, fired shots at the Chiefs. And when they really needed the Chiefs to win, it didn't work in their favor. By the way, what's funny to me? Whenever the Chiefs win, it's rigged. Taylor Swift paid somebody. And then when they lose, the same people are angry. It's like, come on, pick one. Either you want them to win or you want them to lose. Like, quit flip-flopping all that shit. And I get Bengals fans needed the Chiefs to win, but come on. Quit the flip-flopping. But anyway, Kelce was pretty he got a little defensive about the whole thing. And he was saying, he's like, you know what, we'll even play them in the offseason at a Walmart parking lot, which I thought was funny. Cam Taylor-Britt did not appreciate Kelce's response. He was not happy about that. Timothy says people are sick of hearing Bengals fans crying. I'm not. I think it's hilarious. I hope they keep crying. Because that means they did not get their way, which is always just funny to me. Look, the Bengals are not out of the playoffs because of the Chiefs. The Bengals are not in the playoffs because they lost 8 games this year, okay? They had Joe Burrow for half a season last year. They finished 9-8. They had Joe Burrow for a full season this year. He and Jamar dominated the NFL at their positions, as did Trey Hendrickson. They all were league leaders in their respective categories: sacks, receiving yards and touchdowns, and receiving passing yards and touchdowns. And you still missed the playoffs. No team in NFL history has ever had the leader in passing yards and passing touchdowns, the leader in receiving yards and touchdowns, and the leader in sacks. No team has ever had that. And they still missed the playoffs. I mean, talk about how bad your defense is all you want. It was, but you still had the league leader in sacks. So the fact that the Bengals had Joe Burrow and had all these great stats, and they finished with the same record last year, yeah. I mean, listen, let's just be completely honest here. Let's have an honest discussion here. And Sirhan mentions, don't lose to the Patriots in week 1. Yeah, absolutely. And I know people talk about Gesicki. Oh, that touchdown. The NFL admitted they got it wrong. And I don't really agree. That ball came out. As he was coming down. So I thought they got the call right. They even reviewed it. But yeah, I mean, you still should have beat the Patriots by more than a point. The point I'm trying to make here is the Bengals had Burrow for a full season and they had all these great stats, and they didn't make the playoffs. And again, let's be honest here. He's an injury-prone football player. I mean, if you had him for a full season, not that you ever want to see anyone get hurt, because Burrow is a big important part of that franchise. There's a reason why they paid him all that money. He just basically was saying that Travis Kelce was bullshitting, which I thought was funny. But you had Burrow for a full season, and by the way, Burrow took a lot of hits. Was sacked 48 times this year. Burrow and Browning last year combined were sacked 48 times. So, I mean, Burrow continues to take a beating. And again, this is an injury-prone football player. I hope he stays healthy, but there's a possibility this could have been a wasted season. And if he gets hurt in 2025, I think you got to seriously think about exploring another option, or at least having a viable veteran backup. I mean, Jake Browning did well, but I think Jake Browning wants to go start somewhere. He even said as much in an interview on Sirius XM in the offseason. So that's for them to figure out. Yeah, they had Orlando Brown too. It's funny. There was a Bengals podcaster, and I shared the tweet to this on my social media. Someone tweeted me in the 2023 offseason, not this past offseason, the offseason before, telling me that if Orlando Brown joined the Bengals sooner, that the Bengals would have won more Super Bowls than Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs by now. Well, that's funny because they got Orlando Brown and they have not made the playoffs with him. Ever since they paid or overpaid Orlando Brown, ever since they overpaid Joe Burrow, and yes, you overpaid him. I don't care what kind of stats he had this year. They didn't make the playoffs. They have not made the playoffs in those 2 seasons. So those contracts are not looking good. And by the way, you waited on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Yeah, they're going to demand a lot more money than they were asking for last year. So good luck trying to keep those. I mean, I think they will, but that's also going to hurt your chances of trying to get other players. It's not going to be an easy offseason for the Bengals. I'll tell you that right now. Augie was asking about, are you worried about Butker? Missed a couple since his return. He was solid before the surgery. Yeah, he had missed a little bit before the surgery. I mean, he had a phenomenal year last year. He only missed 2 kicks. Made every single PAT, but it was the Patriots game and the Raiders game. Back-to-back weeks, he missed a field goal. Other than that, he didn't miss at all last year. I think there is a little bit of a concern. I'm not concerned about the long PAT. Like, I mean, you're asking your kicker to make a 48-yard PAT. Yeah, when you have to kick from that distance, it is certainly a concern. Spencer Schrader's still on the team, and he's been posting Instagram stories of him practicing and working out all that stuff because he's on IR right now. I think that's on the table. I would be lying to you guys if I said I wasn't concerned, because coming into the season, I did say clearly Butker is the best kicker in the NFL. I do think he has fallen a bit in that category. And by the way, he missed from long range. It's not like it was a chip shot field goal. Yeah, he had a chip shot miss. I think it was against Houston. because the team was not ready to line up. They just kind of got caught off guard and they were rushing the snap. I think at the end of the day, I do trust Butker. Here's the thing you got to remember with Butker. This guy has never missed a kick in the fourth quarter when needing to tie or win you a game. Never. Not once. His NFL debut, first game, with the Chiefs, made a game-winning field goal Monday Night Football. Now, the Chiefs ended up winning by more than 3 points because on the last play of the game, the Commanders were lateraling and the Chiefs picked it up and ran for a touchdown. So you had that there. Timothy has a good question here. Who would you have starting at left tackle? It's got to be Joe Thuney. I thought DJ Humphries had a great test against a very good Broncos pass rush. He failed at that, if we're being honest. And I understand he's coming back from an injury and was on the shelf all year, but you can't be patient anymore. This is now win or go home. And if we're being honest, I just don't know if you can trust DJ Humphries in the playoffs. I would not mind if he played right tackle, but I don't think you can experiment with that right now. I don't think you can. Go with what was working. Left tackle Joe Thuney, left guard Mike Caliendo, center same guys Creed Humphrey, right guard Trey Smith. Jawan Taylor might play right tackle. Maybe Jawan Taylor comes back. We'll see. Or I'm sorry, Wanye Morris. Yeah, he was playing some right tackle, filling in for Jawan Taylor. I'm getting the names mixed up now, but if Jawan Taylor cannot come back, then I guess Wanye Morris will continue playing at right tackle. If the right tackle spot is the only weakness, because I do think Caliendo is playing great at left guard, and obviously Thuney's doing a great job at left tackle, but I think you got to go with that lineup. You can't, experiment anymore. This is no time to experiment. In fact, I'll even tell you guys this right now, because I think Thuney has one more year left on his contract. I think you keep Thuney at left tackle for 2025. Because I was concerned about the switch. Because I'm all about keeping people at the position they're great at. But Thuney's proved that he's just fine at left tackle. Now, I think you have plenty of time in the offseason to have him maybe change his weight or whatever you got to do, so that way he could be a better left tackle. Even though he's doing a great job at it, but I think there might be some things they would want to change with his weight and his frame. Certainly makes sense. But I do think Thuney is not just your left tackle for the playoffs. I think Thuney is your left tackle for 2025. I think you have to seriously consider that. Yeah, Thuney's a guy, he might go down as one of the best offensive linemen of all time. He won a couple of Super Bowls with the Patriots. And yes, I know it's always been Tom Brady there, but you got to have a good offensive line. And Thuney played a big part in that. And then he comes to Kansas City, plays for another great quarterback and playing very well also, playing at a very high level. So I think Thuney, especially if this three-peat happens, he's going to have 5 Super Bowl rings, I think? Maybe 6? No, it is 5. Because he was not with the team in 2019. He was still with the Patriots, now that I recall. Because he joined the team in 2022 when Veach revamped the entire line. So or 2021 rather, excuse me. But anyway, he will have 5 Super Bowl rings if the Chiefs pull off this three-peat here. So yeah, he's gonna have to. He's gonna go down as one of the best of all time. So I'm glad he's a Chief. All right, guys, that'll do it for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. I am Farzin Vasugian. Appreciate you guys joining me tonight for this installment of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please give it a like, share it, let your friends know. Go ahead and look up the podcast on Apple Podcasts because we could definitely use your guys' help on there. If you guys take a quick minute to give it a 5-star review, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Appreciate you guys once again, whether you watch and listen live or later on in the archive version. Appreciate all of you guys making the Chiefs Zone part of your day. I'm Farzin Vasugian. I am out. I'll talk to you guys for the Red Friday live chat. Take care.